What is going on, guys? This is Miasin. So today I really wanted to make a guide on what are the best staples to invest your money on, especially if you're on a budget, because some of these cards are much cheaper than others while also being much better. So you definitely have to own them. Or some others are, they're good, but they're not like super insane and they might be worth like a little bit more money. So they're good to have if you have them, but you don't necessarily need to have them. And some others, they're just a little too expensive right now, so you might want to hold on until they get a reprint. And some of these cards that I'm about to show you are getting a reprint confirmed in Rarity Collection 2. And some other cards, they will most likely get a reprint, which will make them much cheaper. But yeah, before we go any further into this video, I would really appreciate if you could smash the like and subscribe button. Let's aim 1,000 likes. I know we can make it. And yeah, huge shout outs to my sponsors, Inspire TCG as well as Dueling. And check out my coaching. Link will be in the description box below as always, because I do that now. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first card is a Lava Golem. It's a decent card, but it's not like a super staple that you definitely want to have, because it's only really good against like it's good against a decent amount of decks, but it's only good in a few, like in a niche, like a selection of decks, so it's not like super easy to play. So yeah, it's not the kind of card that you will be running very often, unless you're playing a trap deck, but even then you can live without this card and just play hand traps instead. So yeah, it's not like a super staple for sure. Appaloosa, I think this card is a little too expensive at the moment, and it is getting a reprint in Rarity Collection 2. I don't know exactly when this set will exist. I think it's going to be like during the summer or something, or maybe after. I have no idea, but yeah, this card is like, I think like 20 Canadian, something like that at the moment. It's a little too much. Same thing with Worm. This card is very good, but it is by far the most expensive bestial, because I think it didn't get a reprint in a while, and it's one of the other bestials that actually has a real effect. Saronir is also like semi-expensive, but not even that much. It's only really played in like Despia for its effect, and I guess other, like, some decks are playing it as a bestial hand trap as a one-of. Baldric is super cheap though, and Magnamut is limited, obviously, so there's a very good reason why Magnamut is one of the cheapest ones. But Worm being almost 10 Canadian, that's a little too much. Cosmic Cyclone is super cheap, super easy to get your hands on, and billions of rarities for this card, and it's really good. It's always going to be good. It can be good against like combo decks even, or control decks, mid-range decks, everything. So yeah, this is definitely one of the most important staples in the game by far. Sphere Mode, this is in the same category as Lava Golem. It's not going to come up super often, so I wouldn't really invest my money on these two cards, especially if I can't buy like everything, right? Like, let's say I have like a budget of 100. I really want to prioritize from the top to the bottom order. Imperm is definitely one of the best investments for sure. I think it's like $5 or something, but it's such a good card. You will pretty much always be playing 3 Imperm. I keep saying that regardless of the format that we're in, the most played hand traps will always be in order Ash, Imperm, probably Veiler, Nibiru, and then maybe Drool, Mourner, and then Ogre maybe, and those other niche hand traps, Ghost Bell maybe on the side. Usually not in the main. If it's in the main, it's maybe as a one-off for a cross-out target. Anyways, Lightning Storm, I actually don't think you need this card too much, but it is better to have than Lava Golem in Sphere Mode. It's just that if it's worth something that and you can't necessarily buy it, again, you want to prioritize some other cards. Like Cosmic, for example, I think is much more of a staple than Lightning Storm. And yeah, Ash, by the way, obviously I just mentioned it, so yeah, it's a super important card. Evenly, again, same category as Lightning Storm. They're in a very interchangeable position, so I wouldn't really know like which one to put before the other. But yeah, very good cards. Duster, I think it's a great card, but it's slightly less good than Cosmic, only because it's not a card that works for going first. It's a going second only card. It is a thrust target if it matters. Usually it's not going to matter, so it's going to be like an unsearchable random one-of. It's a good card, but it does play into anti-spell, whereas Cosmic Cyclone doesn't. So Cosmic, I just feel like is the safer option the majority of the time, and it's also much better against Runic stun decks, because you can have Lightning Storm and it doesn't do anything, Lightning Storm and Duster, but Cosmic, for their Fountain or whatever, it's always going to be doing something. Summon Limit, this card is very good, definitely one of the best cards to, I mean, one of the best side deck cards, and also it might go up in value if it dodges the ban list, so yeah, it's a card that you kind of really want to have your hands on, honestly. Forbidden Droplet, another card that you don't necessarily super need. You can always get away with like not playing board breakers if you're playing like a lot of hand traps. So this card is not like a super staple, but it's definitely a very good card. D-Crow, yeah, it's just another card that you don't necessarily need either. And also, I'm not a big fan of this card. I actually think it's like worse than all of these. The Bestials are usually better than DD Crow because they also give you a body, so you can kind of afford to brick and unbrick eventually. And I've already mentioned how Bestios, Nibiru, Phantasme, all those cards, they help you beat Summon Limit because you're going second, you're handicapping your opponent, and then you're summoning a monster, and then on your own turn, you summon anything, and then you go straight for a Phoenix and 2 summons. Whereas if you had no monsters on the field, on your own turn, you have to summon 2 monsters, and then go into Phoenix, which is 3 summons, and Summon Limit only gives you 2 summons. DD Crow, it doesn't really do that much. It's good against Purely, but that's about it. Triple Tactic Talent, very good card to have, honestly. Very, very good, and it got reprinted relatively recently in Rarity Collection 1, I believe. Was it? I actually forgot, but it's a great card, and it was super expensive before for a very good reason. Thrust is still expensive, but this card is better than Thrust anyways, right? Anyways, Nibiru is a no-brainer. It's a kind of card that you always want to have, absolutely always. I think there's almost no format, where this card will be like a 0 of in the main and in the side. At the current moment, I think, and I've made a video on that, I would rather delegate Nibiru to the side because it's a very long explanation, but when you are playing like other kind of hand traps like Ash, Veiler, Imper, Mourner, they do Nibiru's job anyways, because if you draw them in combination, you're skipping your opponent's turn. And if you draw Nibiru Imperm, you're also beating your opponent, but then if you draw Nibiru against the matchups where Nibiru is bad, like Voice's Voice, Despia, Flunderies, Kashtira, etc., they play around it at least, this card does nothing. And also, if you draw it as your one and only hand trap and your opponent goes normal summon Snake Eye Ash effect, Nibiru also just doesn't do enough. Whereas Ash, Veiler, Imperm, those cards would be great. So yeah, Nibiru is... You do have to use your brain when using this card because it's not going to make you win on its own. It could if your opponent sucks. I want to say almost every deck and everybody knows how to beat this card, so it's not as great. SP Little Knight, you definitely wait for a reprint. This card is way too expensive. It's a broken staple, but yeah, it's like over $100 US or something right now, which is way too much. Different Dimension Ground, this is in the same category as Summon Limit. Is just such a good card. And it's also a Trap Trick, Trap Track, and Thrust target, because it is a normal trap card, just like Dimensional Barrier. So it's fantastic. Kashtira Fenrir, another card where I rarely recommend to wait for the reprint, because right now I think it's like $15. A playset would be a lot of money for a card that it might get limited at any point, so it's not a super great investment. All these cards are just worth a little too much money that you don't necessarily have to like spend on, honestly. You can live without all those cards. I mean, SP, I definitely recommend borrowing one from your friend if you're going to like a regional or YCS. But every other card, I guess Appaloosa, you also want to borrow one, but it's not going to break the bank. Anyways, Magnemite, yeah, you have to own this card. 100%. 100%, let's not even talk about it. Lancia, this card is cheap, but I mean, it's also garbage, so... yeah, you can easily live without this card, but it's so easy to buy that whatever. I really recommend just getting your hands on 3 Lancias, just so that you never have to worry about it again. Ghost Mourner, this is probably the best card in this section. You're almost never going to play Mourner, except if you're in a format where all the other hand traps are just not enough. Then Mourner is just like your 7th, 8th, and 9 copies of Veiler and Imperm. That's really how I see it. There are a few decks where Mourner is like better than Veiler, like Kashtira, because it's a level 3 tuner and it discards itself, so you can use it under Shifter. But usually it's not any better, so it's one of the best bad hand traps out there. Book of Eclipse, I actually think this is better than Evenly and Lightning Storm for the most part, even though you can't really compare them. I guess Book of Eclipse and Droplet are really comparable because going first, you can book yourself so that you can dodge Veiler and Imperm, so it's kind of like an extra copy of Crossout. And then going second, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You can break boards while also dodging negation, so I just like both of these cards, but they're also somewhat niche. But they will fix a few of your problems, so they're nice. Ghost, Sister, and Spooky Dogwood. I hate this card, and I really don't think you need it at all. Like, so it's whatever. If you can get your hands on it for super cheap, super easy, then sure, but otherwise, no. Triple Tactic Thrust, I talked about this card. Way too expensive, and it's really not that good. You can 100% live without it. Solemn Judgment and Solemn Strike are in the same category. They're good, but they're not insane, so whatever. You don't necessarily need to have 3 copies of both of these cards. Dark Ruler No More. Again, pretty much in the same boat as Forbidden Droplet, Evenly, Lightning Storm. All the board breakers, for the most part, you just don't really need them. You can live without them, but they're really good. So that's the reason why they're still at like the top of this section. Anti-Spell, I think it's pretty cheap and it's pretty good, so you still need it. Ghost Ogre. This card is actually a very good investment over time because it is going to be good against Tent by Dragon and a few other decks. So if you can get your hands on this card before it spikes, then that would be good. Ghost Reaper. This card is usually trash because extra decks are like it's like 15 one-ofs almost. So you remove one card, they still have so many other options. And decks nowadays, they can win with like their main deck almost. So Reaper is really just not what it used to be. This card honestly just blows now. IP Masquerade, I would say wait for a reprint, but it's not even that expensive. So yeah, you probably have to play this card. I don't really know where I would place it because it is a Link monster. It's a card in your extra deck, so you either play it or you don't play it, so it's whatever. I'm just gonna put it in the middle, doesn't matter. Pancratops is super cheap, and it's, I want to say, very good. Probably a little better than Lightning Storm in my opinion, because it's also a monster that just applies pressure on its own. I'm just a big fan of it overall. Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, this is a side deck option. I think it's better though than Ghost Ogre. I would probably put it in cards that you really have to own. As long as decks like Labyrinth exist, you will always be forced to have like a way to somewhat counter them somewhere. But if nobody plays Labyrinth, then this card's just not that great because it doesn't have that many other matchups. Like, it's decent against Despia, but even then, they can negate it. But whereas the Bestials, they're just, I want to say, better. So as long as Bestials exist, Ghost Bell is like not even that much of a necessity. But that's just like at the current moment. But it's still, I want to say, probably one of the best, again, one of the best bad hand shops out there. Because I really just don't think this card's fantastic. Bestial Baldrick, this card is worth absolutely nothing, so you have to own it. Dimensional Barrier, I mean, again, it's comparable to different Dimension Ground for the reasons that I established. Prod of Prosperity, this card is super cheap, and even if it goes to 1, you're not even going to lose that much money. So I would definitely try to get my hands on it. Dimension Shifter, this is very niche, so it's just like Lava Golem in Sphere mode. Access Code Talker, this card is a little expensive, so I would just wait for a reprint. And then Effect Veiler, again, very comparable to Infinite Impermanence. You always have to have 3 copies of all of these hand shops in order to just feel somewhat confident and comfortable for any given format. It could be a tier 0 format and you wouldn't care. And then Droll and Logbird, this is a really funny card, so I would put it in wait for reprint because it is in Rarity Collection 2 confirmed, or I would put it right after Nibiru. So it ends up being the same, honestly, because it's a really good card that you definitely want. It's also getting a reprint very soon, so whatever. Anyways, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.